Part 1. The Great Gate. In Chapter 1, Brin is dragged into a pool by a mysterious, tar-like substance that suffocates her. As she struggles to survive, her mind flashes through memories before slipping into darkness. Believing she's dead, she floats in an empty void until a faint light appears, signaling her movement toward an unknown destination. Brin finds herself on the banks of the River of Death, surrounded by figures, including Roan and Moya. They're all dead, yet strangely alive, and Brin learns the gates ahead are closed. The group is trapped, uncertain of what awaits them beyond the gate. In Chapter 2, Moya and her group navigate through a crowd of confused and frightened spirits, including runes, Fhrey, and dwarfs. They approach massive, gold-covered doors adorned with grim carvings. Moya attempts to open the doors by knocking and pushing, but nothing happens. The group discusses a mysterious key and how to use it. Gifford distracts the crowd with a performance, and Tressa, following his cue, inserts the key into a carved mouth on the doors. This causes the massive doors to begin opening, revealing a bright light that blinds the gathered spirits. Part 2. Finding Fault. In Chapter 1, Persephone stands before the dragon wraith, reflecting on her fears about the ongoing war and the fate of her people. She worries about the absence of her friends sent to scout the swamp of Ith and regrets her decisions, including sending Surrey to negotiate. Malcolm, a former ally, unexpectedly arrives and reassures her that her sacrifices matter. He challenges her guilt, suggesting that the world doesn't revolve around her and that everyone plays a role in the outcome. Malcolm reveals that the group sent to the swamp is dead, but there's hope they might return, revealing a deeper plan he orchestrated. Part 3. Masters of Secrets. In Chapter 1, Imali convenes a secret meeting in the tomb of her ancestor Gilindora to discuss Fane Lothian's rule. She seeks opinions on his leadership and the possibility of removing him from power, as his actions have led to crises threatening their society. Despite some resistance, Imali gets her council members to acknowledge that Lothian's incompetence might justify his removal, though the law forbids it. She suggests that if necessary, they may need to kill him to protect their civilization, leaving her colleagues unsettled, but reflecting on the implications of such drastic action. In Chapter 2, Vasek's team buries the rune Suri in a coffin outside the city, despite Volhoric's earlier denial of access to the Estromnaden cemetery. Vasek intends to use the confined space to extract information from her, knowing the physical and psychological pressure could break her resistance. He believes the process will be dangerous for both Suri and himself. However, after 2 hours of waiting, he opens the coffin to find her alive and surprisingly calm, even sleeping, which shocks Vasek, who had anticipated a more dramatic result from his extreme method. In Chapter 3, Suri reflects on her fear of small, confined spaces, rooted in a childhood trauma when she became trapped in a fox's den. As she is buried alive in a coffin by Vasek's men, she expects to panic, but instead, she remains strangely calm. Despite the terror she once felt, she realizes that her fear had lost its power over her. Her evolution as a person, marked by overcoming past fears, allows her to sleep peacefully in the grave. Suri recognizes that being buried alive is nothing compared to the greater horrors she has faced. In Chapter 4, Imali and Vasek discuss the rune's condition and the possibility of her knowing the secret of dragons. Vasek reveals he buried her alive, expecting her to break, but she remained calm and took a nap. Imali suggests treating the rune better, offering her comfort, food, and a safe space, away from Lothian's influence, to potentially gain her cooperation. Vasek, hesitant at first, considers her suggestion, but also recognizes the high stakes. If the rune knows how to create dragons, Lothian will gain the upper hand in the war, undermining their plans. In Chapter 5, Imali and Volhoric discuss the rune's survival after being buried by Vasek. Imali persuades Vasek to adopt a gentler approach to win her over, understanding that any hostility will be directed at Lothian, which could be advantageous. Imali enlists Volhoric's help to have Neri, a priestess of Farrell, speak to the rune. Although Volhoric is skeptical due to Neri's cold and zealous nature, Imali hopes their shared grief over Arian's death will create a connection. However, Volhoric reveals that Neri hated Arian, complicating the plan. Part 4. Loved Ones Lost and Found. In Chapter 1, Moya arrives in the afterlife, Rel, and is surprised by its sunless, serene landscape. She meets familiar faces from her past, including Brin's parents, Sarah and Delwyn, and Tecton's father, Prylo. Reunions are filled with warmth, but Moya struggles with her own emotions, particularly regarding her estranged mother, Audrey. She notices strange details about the afterlife, such as the importance of memories in shaping the world. Moya's attention shifts when she sees Roan reunite with her mother, Rihanna, and she begins to search for Ivor, a man from her past, whom she desires to confront. In Chapter 2, Gifford reflects on seeing Roan with her mother, feeling both awe and sadness. He notices the strange village, similar to Dal Ren but without Ware, and wonders about his missing parents. While the others interact, he sits with Tressa, who expresses regret about her life and mistakes. She reveals her past actions and the hardships she's faced, but Gifford reassures her that she's not worthless. Despite her deflection, Tressa pushes Gifford away, not wanting his pity. Roan calls to him, and Gifford is torn between staying with Tressa and responding to her. In Chapter 3, Brin enters her mother's home, where she meets her deceased siblings, Will, Del, Ren, Dale, and Meadow, and learns more about her family. She is introduced to her grandmother, Brynhilda, who shares her name with Brin. Sarah explains the strange nature of their existence in this place of waiting, where time has no purpose and life is without struggles. As Brin reflects on her own life, Moya arrives with urgent news. They are in danger. Rumors say the ruler of this realm is searching for those who opened the sealed gate. Brin and Moya must find Tressa quickly. In Chapter 4, Tressa reflects on her uncertain future, questioning her role and the key she carries. She feels out of place and worries about her fate in the afterlife, contemplating whether to stay in Rel or move on to Nifrel. Her thoughts are interrupted when Gelston approaches her, expressing deep gratitude and regret for his past actions. He apologizes for mistreating her due to his confusion and reveals that he has known about her mission all along. As they share an emotional moment, the group is interrupted by a ringing sound signaling the death of someone they know at the gate. Part 5. The Swan Priestess. In Chapter 1, Suri settles into a new room, reflecting on her past and the changes in her life. While trying to distract herself by making patterns with string, she is interrupted by Vasek and Neri, Arian's mother. Neri is cold and dismissive, but Suri speaks to her to break the barriers between their peoples. Vasek insists that Neri engage with Suri, hoping she can act as a bridge to foster understanding. Neri resists, but Vasek pressures her, making it clear that she must do as asked for the good of their people. In Chapter 2, Suri engages in a tense conversation with Neri, Arian's mother, who is initially defensive and suspicious of Suri's abilities. Suri pushes Neri to confront her unresolved feelings about Arian's departure and her own regrets, but Neri reacts angrily, accusing Suri of knowing nothing about her or her daughter. Despite the confrontation, Suri reveals that Arian had loved her and only sought to be true to herself. Neri storms out, leaving behind a bundle of new clothes for Suri. Vasek returns, offering insights into Neri's rigid mindset, highlighting the difficulty of changing someone so set in their ways. Part 6. The Invitation. In Chapter 1, Moya and her group observe a large crowd gathered at the Great Gate of Rel, fearing someone important has died. Moya is approached by a group of gray-robed figures, demanding they follow them to meet the ruler of Rel. Arian, revealing the ruler's identity as Drome, steps in to prevent the group from being coerced. Meanwhile, Moya and the others encounter Pedera, who reveals a cryptic message from Malcolm before her death. The message, "When trees walk and stones talk," confounds Brin, but the group resolves to continue their journey to Nifrel. In Chapter 2, Moya and her group leave the village of Ren, following Arian's directions along the brick road deeper into Rel. As they walk, they pass various communities, including Dauthras, Durian, and Nadak homes. Conversations about the nature of the world ensue, touching on Malcolm's cryptic claim that the world is broken. Moya grows concerned when she realizes Wraith is missing, and the group speculates on his fate. Roan shares her thoughts on how Rel might be expanding to accommodate the countless souls, explaining the unusual spatial arrangement of the dead. The group continues their journey pondering the mysteries of the afterlife. In Chapter 3, Moya and her group continue their journey, passing through more communities, both human and non-human. Moya questions the nature of the Mocklins, and Roan shares her theory that the environment in Rel is shaped by belief. As they climb higher, the population becomes sparser, and the buildings more primitive. The group discusses the nature of the afterlife and how perceptions shape reality. They encounter a mysterious well in the road which Roan speculates was altered by someone with greater power than a god. The chapter ends with the group hearing the death toll ring, signaling another loss. In Chapter 4, Moya and her group continue their journey, climbing higher into the mountains. As they ascend, they notice the absence of breath and the strange nature of their environment. Villages become smaller and more primitive before they enter a vast wilderness. The road narrows, and they encounter a towering fortress, Castle Rel, built into the mountain. At the castle's entrance, a group of gray-clad soldiers, including Ezerton, blocks their path. He orders them to follow, and Moya realizes the gravity of their situation. They enter the castle, aware that they may be dealing with something far beyond their understanding. Part 7. End of an Era. In Chapter 1, Persephone stands alone at Padera's grave, reflecting on the loss of the past. The war has claimed many lives, and she is left to mourn those who shaped her world. Her son Nolan, though present, is too young to fully understand the weight of what has been lost. As Persephone watches him leave with Justine, she feels the loss of her old life deeply. She holds on to a fragile hope that those who went to the swamp might return, but with each day that hope fades. She realizes she is the last living connection to the past. In Chapter 2, Nifron reflects on the failed plans that led him to his current situation. As he walks alone, he notices a skeletal hand and contemplates the person who died during a past battle. His thoughts turn to dragons, realizing that they could have been his symbol of power. Nifron is then joined by Malcolm, who reveals concerns for Nifron's welfare and discusses the ongoing war. They debate the futility of Nifron's strategies, with Malcolm suggesting that the conflict is beyond saving. Despite Nifron's disillusionment, Malcolm promises that Nifron will ultimately become ruler, though at a price. Part 8. Unanswered Questions. In Chapter 1, Moya and her group enter Drome's intimidating home, finding it eerily silent and unsettlingly beautiful. They ascend marble stairs and enter a throne room where Drome, a powerful god, sits waiting. Drome questions their arrival, suspecting foul play, but Moya deflects his inquiries with defiance. The group struggles with an overwhelming sense of fatigue despite being dead. Drome, amused by Moya's audacity, demands to know how they opened the sealed gate. Tensions rise as Drome becomes more insistent. A crow interrupts, and Drome traps the group in a stone prison, promising they won't leave until they answer his questions. Part 9. An Equal Trade. In Chapter 1, Neri returns to speak with Suri, apologizing for her previous behavior. She expresses confusion over Arian's actions, especially her decision to betray her people and join the runes. Suri insists Arian was not a traitor, and reveals that the so-called dragon that killed Phrey soldiers was created by her, not Arian. She explains that Arian sought peace between the runes and the Phrey, and it was Mawandul, not Arian, who killed her. Suri also mentions the collar restricting her magic, which would change if removed, offering a potential shift in their understanding. In Chapter 2, Imali listens to Neri's account of her meeting with Suri, who claimed that Arian only defended herself and was not a traitor. Neri asks if the Fane can clear her daughter's name, but Vasek dismisses the idea. Imali debates with Vasek over the truth of Suri's statements, particularly about the dragon's creation. They also discuss a mysterious collar Suri wear, which may hold significance. Imali becomes determined to speak with the rune herself, realizing that she needs more answers to understand the situation and move forward with their plans. In Chapter 3, Suri meets Imali, the curator of the Aquila, who apologizes for her mistreatment and discusses the political situation. Imali reveals that Lothian, the Phrey leader, lied to Suri, trapping her to learn the secret of making dragons. Imali, who desires peace, offers to help Suri remove her collar if she reveals the secret. Suri questions Imali's motives, recalling the betrayals by both Phrey and rune leaders. Imali proposes a deal. If she removes the collar, Suri will regain her powers. The chapter ends with Imali mentioning the Horn of Gilindora, hinting at a potential solution. Part 10. Gaul. In Chapter 1, Brin struggles to retain and understand Drome's cryptic words about Erebus, the gods, and the ancient history of the world. She realizes that the knowledge she carries is crucial and may hold answers for the future. Meanwhile, the group, trapped in a marble prison, works to free themselves. Rain makes progress chipping away the stone, while the group debates their next moves, especially regarding the mysterious guard, Gaul. As Brin remembers more from Drome's hints, she connects the dots, revealing that Malcolm, a key figure in their journey, is actually the god of evil, Uberlin. In Chapter 2, Moya watches Gaul, a large, disoriented creature with a single oversized eye, as she prepares for a risky mission. The group, led by Roan, is ready to take on a dangerous gamble. Moya, a seasoned risk-taker, is joined by Tesh, her partner in both gambling and adventure. She shares a moment with him before stepping into the light, preparing for whatever comes next. Tressa struggles with unlocking something, but after a failed attempt, she realizes she's been holding the tool wrong, leading to a moment of unexpected clarity. The group braces for what's ahead. In Chapter 3, the group is blinded by the sudden light from their prison's dissolution. Moya tries to blind Gaul with an arrow while the others make a run for the exit. Despite the plan's simplicity, things go wrong. Gaul charges and Moya struggles to regain her sight. Tesh distracts Gaul, but the giant continues his pursuit. Moya finally lands a shot, hitting Gaul's eye, and the group rushes for the stairs. Gaul's immense size causes the chamber to collapse, forcing them to flee. Moya sends another arrow, disabling Gaul temporarily as they fall into chaos. In Chapter 4, Brin is the first to escape Drome's collapsing castle, but she turns back to find Moya and Tesh. Moya is trapped under a heavy stone, and Tesh is buried beneath rubble. As Drome's forces approach, Moya orders Brin to leave, urging her to save Suri. Despite Moya's pleas, Brin and Rain try to rescue Moya, but the stone is too heavy to move. With enemies closing in, Brin reluctantly obeys and pulls Gifford through the portal to Nifril. The group escapes, but Brin is left devastated, unsure of what lies ahead. Part 11. The Hero. In Chapter 1, Mawandul reflects on how his experiences, including his travels and independence, have made the Talwara feel stifling. He talks with Imali, who praises his heroism in capturing a rune and saving the city. She suggests that the people now see him as the true heir to leadership, in contrast to his father. As they walk, Imali reveals her belief in his potential, even comparing him to the legendary Fenelius. She expresses admiration for him, and they discuss the past, including their shared memories of Fenelius. Mawandul feels conflicted about his future and his role in the war. In Chapter 2, Mawandul, disillusioned after his conversation with Imali, takes a solitary walk along the river. He stops at the Rose Bridge, reflecting on his lost memories of Macaretta and the life they could have shared. His grief over their lost future deepens, and he wrestles with feelings of self-pity, believing his suffering gives him nobility. He recalls Imali's words about his potential to become a better Fane than his father, and contemplates the possibility that Macaretta was right, as the cold wind and rain mirror his internal turmoil. He struggles with his past and his uncertain future. Part 12. Astray in a Gloomy Wood. In Chapter 1, Brin and her companions arrive in Nifril, a dark and ominous realm. They mourn the loss of Moya and Tesh, the latter of whom is buried under rubble. While adjusting to their new surroundings, they encounter a menacing bear, which Roan attempts to ward off by creating fire. The bear retreats, but they are soon confronted by a fiery apparition of Feral, a powerful entity who reveals her intentions to retrieve a stolen key from them. Feral warns them of dire consequences if they refuse, but Roan extinguishes the flames, cutting off her threatening message. In Chapter 2, the group continues their journey through a bleak, desolate landscape after the Queen of the White Tower's visit. They move forward without clear direction, with Gifford and Roan leading. Brin, troubled by doubts about Malcolm's true nature, reflects on the possibility that he might be evil, despite the differing views of those around her. She questions the loyalty of her companions and wonders about Moya's fate. The journey becomes more perilous as they encounter a dark, dead forest, and strange sounds raise tensions, urging them to move faster and avoid being found. In Chapter 3, Brin and the group venture deeper into the forest, where they encounter strange and eerie sights. They are followed by a creature, only to discover it's Tesh and Moya, who have miraculously survived, though Moya has lost a leg. Brin rushes to find help and encounters a Fhrey woman named Fen. Fen magically heals Moya's leg and reveals she's been sent to find Rain, not to cause trouble. As the group learns more about Fen's connection to the Queen of the White Tower, they realize Farrell's influence is stronger than they thought, and danger is imminent. In Chapter 4, Fen leads the group toward the battlefield, with Brin and Tesh deep in conversation about their past. Tesh apologizes for his actions, explaining his emotional turmoil after Brin's death and his subsequent despair. The group reaches a cliff, where they witness a battle below. Fen reveals her connections to King Midian and the fortress, offering to guide them to safety. Tensions rise when Rain identifies Fen as the dark sorceress of the Ilfa, responsible for the deaths of many. Despite the history, Brin vouches for Fen's trustworthiness, and they decide to follow her. Part 13. Point of No Return. In Chapter 1, Imali brings Makareta, a Miralith, to Vasek, the Master of Secrets, in a tense and dangerous meeting. Despite Makareta's distrust and unease, Imali insists on the truth, revealing Makareta's identity to Vasek. Vasek, while concerned about the danger Makareta poses, agrees to keep her secret, acknowledging the risks of unleashing a powerful Miralith in Estramnadan. Imali, desperate and out of options, convinces Vasek to support their plan. The chapter ends with Imali and Makareta preparing to face the uncertain consequences ahead, hoping for protection. In Chapter 2, Imali introduces Makareta, a Miralith, to Suri. The two women are initially wary of each other, but Makareta quickly assesses the magical collar on Suri, identifying a complex seal. She offers to remove it, explaining that once done, she can neutralize the Orenfar markings and restore the collar. However, this act will create a void around Suri, making her undetectable by other Miraliths. Imali places her trust in Suri, agreeing to a deal in which Suri will teach Lothian how to create dragons in exchange for their protection. Suri agrees, but only if the terms are upheld. Part 14. Descent into Darkness. In Chapter 1, Tesh and the group navigate a treacherous path high above a war-torn valley, with Tesh struggling against his fear of heights. As they approach a gap in the trail, Tesh hesitates, paralyzed by fear, while the others make the crossing with ease. Tressa, after a shaky start, makes it across, and Gifford encourages Tesh to follow. Brin offers her hand, urging Tesh to trust her. Overcoming his fear, Tesh takes her hand and safely crosses. The moment strengthens their bond, and Tesh gains new resolve, realizing the journey ahead is not just physical but emotional. In Chapter 2, the group continues their journey through a forest of dead pines, with Tesh growing more distrustful of Fenelius. They discuss the nature of Nifril and Phyre, where souls go after death, and the powers they possess in this realm. Fenelius explains that their abilities are tied to their will and confidence, not true magic. Tesh remains skeptical, especially about the false reality surrounding them. Conversations about the afterlife, including the sacred grove and the different realms, reveal that their understanding of life and death is shifting. Tesh questions the true nature of their existence in this place. In Chapter 3, Tesh and his group endure a fierce battle against bankers, enormous bat-like creatures, while approaching Midian's castle. Fenelius temporarily shields them with magic, but weakens the creatures overwhelm her. Moya's enhanced archery and Fenelius's powerful lightning strikes manage to repel 2 waves of attackers. Facing even greater danger from a giant serpent and an approaching army, Tesh urges Brin to escape alone to save Suri. He sacrifices himself to give Brin a chance, and despite her reluctance, she finally obeys, running toward the bridge with incredible speed as Tesh falls behind. Part 15. Dragon Secrets and Mouse Slippers. In Chapter 1, Suri meets with the Fane in a smaller chamber, negotiating for her safety before revealing secrets about dragons. She secures Farrell's protection, which prevents other Fhrey from killing her, though the Fane retains the right to do so himself. In exchange, Suri will remain under constant watch in Estramnadan with limited freedom. Despite these restrictions, Suri agrees, understanding the necessity of her survival. With the Fane's curiosity piqued, she begins to explain the dragon's nature, setting the stage for a deeper revelation while maintaining her leverage in their tense negotiation. In Chapter 2, after her meeting with the Fane, Suri is brought to Imali's home, where she meets Makareta, another Miralith who has become an outlaw after killing a Fhrey. Imali urges them to work together peacefully, explaining they share common dangers and goals, forming a sort of family. Suri and Makareta bond over their unconventional situations, with Suri admiring Makareta's unique, mouse-faced slippers. Makareta hints at the restrictions she faces, unable to use magic freely for fear of detection. Despite these challenges, they decide to support each other, establishing a fragile but hopeful alliance. In Chapter 3, Suri and Makareta bond over shared grief as Makareta reveals her regret over past actions that left her feeling hollow. Suri, seeing a wolf sculpture that reminds her of her lost companion Minna, encourages Makareta to focus on creating a future rather than dwelling on the past. They find comfort in each other's company, with Suri selecting a new Asuka for herself, symbolizing renewal. Emily interrupts, noticing Suri wearing her good Asuka, and, upon seeing Makareta's unfinished sculpture, suggests she should find closure by explaining her actions to the one she left behind. Part 16. In the Hall of the Dwarven King. In Chapter 1, Brin races to reach the fortress bridge as explosions erupt around her, signaling the intense battle underway. She reaches the gate just as others are collapsing from exhaustion, haunted by the sight of Tesh being struck by a javelin while protecting her. Moya finds Brin and, seeing her devastated state, asks about Tesh. Unable to speak, Brin finally tearfully reveals Tesh's sacrifice. Moya comforts her, reminding Brin that since Tesh is already dead, he cannot truly die again, hinting at the ongoing possibility for Tesh and Tection despite the dire circumstances. In Chapter 2, Gifford, Tressa, and their group recover from the intense battle as they explore an enchanting courtyard with grass and stars. They are soon approached by a small dwarf who escorts them to the throne room of King Midian, a towering and opulent ruler. The king's daughter, Beatrice, seems deeply connected to Roan and insists that this group is crucial to the fate of their world. Despite her ominous warning of the impending siege outside, Beatrice refuses to share specific details, only urging Midian to help the heroes reach Allison. After a tense exchange, the group prepares to face what lies ahead. Part 17. The Drink. In Chapter 1, Persephone and Nifron share a somber moment around a campfire. Persephone has just put their son Nolan to sleep when Nifron joins her, bringing a rare bottle of Arivity liquor as they mourn the recent loss of their friends. Reflecting on life, duty, and loneliness, they discuss Persephone's human allies and Nifron's Galantian warriors all fallen in battle. Nifron admits he's unused to the calm after years of warfare and plans to assign her a new bodyguard, Seeker. Together, they find brief solace in their shared grief and the warmth of each other's company. Part 18. The Great Rain. In Chapter 1, Roan, Gifford, and the others leave the Hall of Midian with Beatrice, who insists on speaking privately but agrees to include the group after Roan demands transparency. She leads them through the labyrinthine corridors of the bulwark, finally bringing them to her private chambers. Beatrice offers them tea and cake, explaining that even in Nifril, sensations are valued. Roan presses her to explain why she called him great, but Beatrice first asks him to share his reason for coming. Roan reveals he's been haunted by dreams of a woman calling him. Beatrice confirms she was the one calling. In Chapter 2, Beatrice reveals to Roan that she knows the future, including the key's presence among the group. She explains that she can't disclose everything, as revealing too much alters the course of events. Beatrice predicts that Roan will survive his quest, return to the living, and find a treasure in a fishing village, an 8-year-old girl named Amika, whom he will eventually marry. She further explains that Roan will restore the Belgric Lengrean royal line, become king, and unite the clans. Despite initial doubts, Beatrice assures him that the prophecy will come true, marking the beginning of a silver age for his people. In Chapter 3, Brin reflects on her grief and confusion over Tesh's actions and their consequences. She struggles with the weight of his past and her lingering love for him. Moya offers support, sharing her own painful experience and acknowledging the intense pain they both endured. Brin is determined to find Tesh despite the ongoing war, believing he sacrificed everything for her. She reveals that Tesh killed the Galantians in revenge, but Moya learns that Nifron's actions, not Tesh's alone, are responsible for the conflict. As they confront these truths, both women are overwhelmed by their emotions. In Chapter 4, Gifford and the others reflect on the strange, childlike quality of Beatrice's bedroom in Nifril. They discuss the tragic story of Beatrice's life and marriage to Midian, along with her death while giving birth. Tressa grows frustrated with the cramped room, and Roan, noticing Moya and Tesh's absence, reveals they followed the group into Nifril without the key, as they belong there. Roan explains that Nifril is for ambitious, brave souls, which means Tekshin will also be able to cross over. However, she warns that Brin will never be with Tesh again, a painful realization for the group. Part 19. Sacrifices. In Chapter 1, Imali announces a lottery in Florella Plaza to determine the first victim for a sacrifice to create dragons, with Fhrey lives to be taken for the war effort. The prince, Mawandul, is chosen to draw the name, excluding the senior Aquila, palace staff, and Mirrorleaf from the lottery. The crowd reacts with outrage, especially when it's revealed that the Mirrorleaf are exempt due to their vital role in protecting the river. Mawandul draws a pebble from a large urn, and the name Amedea of the Gwydri is chosen. She is taken away by guards, and the crowd feels a mix of relief and unease. In Chapter 2, Imali struggles with guilt after the lottery selects Amedea, a Gwydri worker, for sacrifice. She tries to convince herself that Amedea might deserve it, but she knows it was her decision to push for the creation of dragons, knowing innocence would die. At home, Imali tells Macareta and Suri about the selection, but neither seems affected by the choice. Suri, the Rune Mirrorleaf, expresses concern, prompting Imali to reflect on her role in the situation. When Suri rushes out the door without explanation, Imali calls after her, unsure of what her next move will be. In Chapter 3, Suri runs to the palace, determined to stop the sacrifice of Amedea, but is intercepted by a Fhrey guard. Despite being stopped, she manages to reach the plaza, where she finds the Fane covered in blood, standing over Amedea's body. The Fane admits that no dragon was created, and Suri confronts him, explaining that a true sacrifice requires deep personal loss, something he hadn't experienced with a stranger. Realizing his mistake, the Fane acknowledges that only by sacrificing someone he loves can the magic work. Suri's words shift his perspective, and he finally understands the true cost of the act. Part 20. In the Presence of Legends. In Chapter 1, Tesh is urged by Wraith to protect Brin and live a peaceful life after the battle, but Tesh is conflicted. Later, he wakes in the Queen of the White Tower's throne room, disoriented and in pain. The Queen, accusing Tesh of betrayal and deceiving Brin, demands to know the location of a key. She offers him pleasures in exchange for its whereabouts, but warns of eternal torment if he refuses. As the Queen's torturous questioning intensifies, Tesh succumbs to the pain, revealing that Tressa has the key, though his words are met with suspicion. In Chapter 2, Beatrice leads the group through the fiery depths of the bulwark to meet Esperling, a legendary dwarf craftsman. Despite his gruff demeanor, Alberic agrees to craft armor for the group. Beatrice explains their urgency, and Alberic questions their readiness for battle, commenting on their appearance and lack of experience. He begins measuring Roan for armor, revealing that the gear will enhance their eshim, or willpower. When Gifford questions the reality of the armor, Alberic explains it strengthens their confidence. He also inspects Gifford's sword, realizing it is made from a memory of steel. Alberic promises to craft his best armor for them. In Chapter 3, Beatrice takes Moya, Brin, and Gifford to the top of the bulwark, offering them a stunning view of the siege on Midian's fortress. They observe the battle below and the vast network of roads and fortresses, including the White Tower and the mouth of the Abyss. Beatrice explains the secret flyway route to avoid the attacking armies, but warns them of the powerful Asira, including Queen Farrell. As Beatrice hints at deeper truths, Brin lingers, contemplating her past and reaching out mentally to Tesh, whom she still hopes to connect with despite the distance. In Chapter 4, Tesh endures unimaginable pain and suffering but survives, lying in the throne room of Nifril. He overhears a conversation between the Queen and others, discussing their plans to eliminate the remaining enemies. They plan to use tunnels to trap their foes and set up an ambush at the narrows between monoliths. The Queen orders precise movements to prevent any risks, including keeping track of a crucial key. Tesh is discovered and recognized by the Queen, who orders him thrown into the pit despite promises made. Sebek approaches, signaling the next phase of their dark plans. In Chapter 5, Beatrice tells Brin and the others the story of the world's creation, starting with the union of Eton and Elan, the sky and the world, and their children, light, water, and time. As Beatrice delves deeper, she reveals darker tales, including the birth of the Typhons and the Asira, a group of powerful beings created from Eton's stolen teeth. Meanwhile, Midian and others enter, revealing the extravagant ceremonial armor designed by Alberic Berling. Roan, Tressa, and Rain are transformed by the armor, symbolizing a shift in their roles and spirits as they prepare for their next steps. Part 21. Wars Within a War. In Chapter 1, Imali and her co-conspirators gather at the crypt of Gillandor Fane to discuss their plan to overthrow Fane Lothian, whose rule has become increasingly unstable and dangerous. Imali reveals her plan to challenge Lothian and kill him, ensuring the survival of their people and culture. She seeks the support of her allies, including Volhoric, Herman, and Nanagal, while navigating their doubts and concerns. The meeting is tense, but Imali asserts her authority, making it clear that the stakes are high, and her plan, though risky, may be their only chance to prevent further bloodshed. In Chapter 2, Mawandul is confronted by Sin, Scylla, and Vasek, who accuse his servant Treya of stealing a gold candlestick. Treya denies the accusation, and Mawandul questions why he should intercede on her behalf. Sin reveals that his father has ordered Treya's execution, but Mawandul remains indifferent, playing along with the charade. As the tension rises, he shows little concern for Treya's fate, though he privately feels conflicted. After the group leaves with a sobbing Treya, Mawandul begins to question their motives and the deeper implications of the situation, especially regarding his father's involvement. In Chapter 3, Mawandul encounters a strange, disheveled figure in the garden who speaks cryptically about his father, Treya, and the nature of life. The figure claims Mawandul's father, Lothian, lacks real affection, and that loss is inevitable for Fhrey, numbing them over time. The man hints that Mawandul's life is about to change, urging him to learn about Troth, the chord of creation, and its immense power. He also suggests that Mawandul will need to learn how to eavesdrop and mentions Jared's ability to create a strawberry using this power. Mawandul, confused and irritated, walks away, unsure of the stranger's intentions. In Chapter 4, Mawandul reflects on his strange encounter with the man on the bench before heading out of the garden. While walking along the river, he is shocked to see Macaretta alive. She explains she's been hiding for 7 years and wants to apologize, revealing her role in the assassination plot against Mawandul's father. She speaks of her disillusionment with Lothian's rule, claiming he's ruining their society. She asks for Mawandul's help in killing his father, believing he's the only one who can stop the destruction. Mawandul, conflicted, listens as Macaretta urges him to consider her plea. Part 22. The Hole. In Chapter 1, Brin and the group travel through a dark tunnel, heading toward an uncertain battle. As they march, Brin's armor enhances her spirit, making her glow with innocence, which draws attention. She discusses her relationship with Tesh, revealing his decision to abstain from intimacy to avoid leaving her a widow. The group encounters Herkimer, Wraith's father, and learn of Wraith's death. As they continue, Tressa struggles with a mysterious burden. The group reaches a narrow crevice where they must use ropes to cross a chasm. Brin discovers the crossing is easier than expected, thanks to her newfound abilities. In Chapter 2, Tesh finds himself thrown into a deep, dark pit in Nifril, a place similar to his home of Durea, filled with hostility and despair. He shares the pit with a dwarf named Anvari, who reveals that he has been trapped for centuries by the Queen Farrell for his knowledge of a crucial secret: the destruction of a bridge that could lead to a final battle determining the world's fate. The Queen's revenge and her obsession with control led her to imprison Anvari, while Tesh, now aware of the danger, realizes his fate is tied to hers. In Chapter 2, Mawandul is confronted by Sin, Scylla, and Vasek, who accuse his servant Treya of stealing a gold candlestick. Treya denies the accusation, and Mawandul questions why he should intercede on her behalf. Sin reveals that his father has ordered Treya's execution, but Mawandul remains indifferent, playing along with the charade. As the tension rises, he shows little concern for Treya's fate, though he privately feels conflicted. After the group leaves with a sobbing Treya, Mawandul begins to question their motives and the deeper implications of the situation, especially regarding his father's involvement. In Chapter 4, Sebek challenges Tesh to a fight, offering the chance to escape if Tesh can defeat him. Tesh, exhausted and unsure of his abilities, contemplates the situation but decides to take the rope. Sebek pulls him up, revealing a strange bone chamber. Tekchin, who had been silent, suddenly stabs Sebek in the back, helping Tesh. The two drag Sebek's unconscious body away and discuss the situation. Tesh promises to help Andvari escape, and despite the risks, they work together to pull him out of the pit. They prepare to run, knowing they face a dangerous future with the Queen's wrath looming. Part 23. The Sword of Words. In Chapter 1, Brigham, son of Gavin Killian, carefully oils the Sword of Words, a legendary weapon used to kill a dragon. As Brigham's campmates, including Atkins and Edgar, discuss Tesh's whereabouts, a massive dragon suddenly appears, attacking the nearby Legion camp. The dragon unleashes flames, incinerating tents and killing soldiers. Brigham, holding the dragon-slaying sword, contemplates using it against the beast. However, Edgar orders the group to retreat, insisting nothing can kill a dragon. They decide to return to the dragon camp to report the dragon's appearance and the elves' involvement to Persephone. Part 24. Queen of the White Tower. In Chapter 1, Gifford arrives at a chaotic battlefield where giants, dwarfs, and Fhrey clash. Amidst the violence, he draws his sword, though he lacks combat experience. As Gath commands their forces, they face the threat of the Breakwaters, a group of giants blocking their path. Fenelius uses her magical abilities to create powerful spheres of light, defeating the giants by manipulating the ground beneath them, causing them to fall into the abyss. With the giants defeated, the battle resumes as Gath orders his forces to advance, continuing the fight against the overwhelming enemies. In Chapter 2, Tesh and his companions race through the White Tower, which is eerily silent and cold. Tesh is struck by a mirror-like reflection of himself, feeling small and insignificant. But Andvari explains it's merely the Queen's perception of him, not the truth. They encounter two guards, who reveal the Queen has unleashed Ore. Tesh follows Tekshin and Andvari out, but becomes separated, and despite being surrounded by soldiers, he is ignored. Trying to jump across a gap, Tesh injures his leg, breaking his shin. As he lies in pain, a shadow with wings passes overhead, signaling a new danger. In Chapter 3, the army of King Midian advances toward the bridge, and Gifford feels the tension of the battle. As they near the crossing, a dragon Ore appears, devastating the battlefield with its power. Fenelius urges Midian to summon a golem, a powerful creature from old magic, to fight the dragon. After a fierce struggle between the golem and Ore, the way is cleared for Gifford and the others to cross the bridge. However, as they approach the other side, Roan is suddenly pulled away, leaving Gifford in shock as they are separated just before reaching safety. In Chapter 4, Tesh struggles with his injury as he watches the battle unfold. He desperately searches for Brin among the chaos, but when he sees a group of heroes crossing the bridge, his hope fades. Brin is not among them. Pushing through the ranks of the Queen's forces, Tesh finally spots her running ahead of the others. As he fights his way through the crowd, he's pulled onto the bridge by a dwarf and joins the group. They race toward the cave at the bridge's far end, unaware of the danger approaching. The bankers appear, threatening their escape. In Chapter 5, Moya, hearing Beatrice's urgent shout, turns just in time to shoot two bankers attacking Roan and Gifford. Gifford falls safely to the bridge, but Roan is flung into the abyss. Brin reacts in shock, but Gifford is prevented from jumping after her by rain. A bankor targets Tressa, but Moya kills it just before it can reach her. Brin spots Tesh, who is wielding two shining swords, but before they can exchange words, a powerful explosion shakes the area, signaling a new danger. The group faces mounting threats as they move forward. In Chapter 6, the golem explodes, halting the battle and drawing the attention of Queen Farrell, who arrives with her warriors. She demands the key and warns of the dragon Ore, who will eat those who try to escape. As the bankers target the group, Brin is captured and falls into the abyss, followed by Gifford. Moya and Rain are also taken, leaving only Tessa and Tesh. Tessa prepares to jump to avoid capture, but Tesh stops her. He realizes that the fate of the world rests in his hands and makes a decision that may destroy everything, ending the chapter in darkness.